on JG9 News, we have a lot of new videos out. Make sure to check the link in the description to find out more and subscribe now to JG9 News. And now, on with our feature presentation. January 7th, 1979. We're in Los Angeles for the NFC Championship between the defending NFC champion Dallas Cowboys and the Los Angeles Rams. The stakes for this one are simple. The winner goes down to Miami to take on the Pittsburgh Steelers 2 weeks later at Super Bowl 13, where the winner will be crowned the champion of football. For the loser, however, their season is over, one step short of football's biggest stage. If the Cowboys win this game, it's their second straight appearance in the big game, and would be their record 5th appearance ever in franchise history, having somehow played in nearly half of the installments of this game. If the Rams win this one, it would not only be their first appearance ever in the Super Bowl, but would be their first appearance in any title game since 1955, nearly a quarter century before, when they lost to the Cleveland Browns in the NFL Championship. This was a battle between two of the top teams in football. You had one 12-4 team going up against another 12-4 team, and a red-hot Cowboys team that had won 7 straight and had the number 1 offense and number 3 defense in football, going up against a Rams team that started the season 7-0, was the last unbeaten left in the league, and kept that momentum riding high into this game, looking to win against the Cowboys for the second time this season. In the end, this game was, well, it was one of the weirdest bloodbaths of all time. Really, the teams were very evenly matched. The score was 0-0 at the half. The Rams had 40 more yards than the Cowboys did, none of which came in garbage time. The Rams had some nice strides where they were moving the ball. Roger Staubach looked shaky to start the game off, throwing 2 interceptions, and it really felt like the Rams had a legitimate chance to win this one. There are some games where you look at the score and it never felt that close. And then, there are some games where you look at the score and it never felt that lopsided until the very end. This one was one of the latter. However, when all was said and done, it was the Dallas Cowboys who once again prevailed, taking it by a final score of 28-0, simply because the Rams could not get out of their own way. When you combine a missed field goal with 7 turnovers and a passing game that threw 5 interceptions, completed 40% of their passes, and between Pat Hayden and Vince Ferragamo, combined to post a passer rating of 20.3, which is worse than if he did nothing but spike the ball into the ground on every single play, it's not hard to see why the Rams lost this one. Even though it was tied at the half, and just 7-0 in favor of the Cowboys after 3, the Cowboys eventually pulled away, thanks to constantly starting off with great field position, and they won it in what had to be the closest 4-possession conference championship game ever. So Cowboy fans across all of Texas were super happy with the result. I can't say the entire state of Texas was happy, seeing as the Houston Oilers got completely destroyed earlier in the day against the Pittsburgh Steelers, but the Cowboys were once again going to the Super Bowl, where they would look to repeat as Super Bowl champions, and would look to get revenge on the Steelers for the outcome of Super Bowl X 3 years before. But the real drama in this one didn't happen on the field, but rather off of it. Because in one city in Texas, there were concerns of if they'd even be able to get the game or not. Seriously, the day of the game was January 7th. The game started at 5 o'clock Eastern. And 30 minutes before the game, if you were in the city of Abilene, Texas, you had no idea if you'd be able to watch the game. And if so, what network it would be on. Because it might not have been CBS. Because 180 miles west of Dallas, in the city of Abilene, home of about 100,000 people at the time, many of whom were Cowboy fans, absolute chaos ensued that we're going to take a deep dive into today. Because this is the story behind what might just be, considering the circumstances, the craziest broadcasting controversy in the history of the NFC Championship.
8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and a happy 1979!
The year is 1979, and oh man, things were off to a horrible start down in Texas. I don't mean from a football standpoint. Obviously, the Cowboys were doing very well. But much of the state had been completely obliterated with a bad ice storm. Down in Dallas, The wind chill factor was a brutally cold -8 degrees, and with the Cotton Bowl taking place the same day on New Year's Day, it was estimated that even though 72,000 tickets were sold, a whopping 39,500 people did not show up because it was that brutal and the roads were that bad. I don't blame them. Meteorologists called it the worst ice storm in 30 years to hit Dallas, and it was estimated that 100,000 people lost power in Dallas, with people in Dallas Power and Light working non-stop to restore power and fix the lines and poles that were knocked down by the trees, which fell over because of all the ice. The good news was that for the most part, power was restored to every home by the night of Tuesday, January 2nd. So while people did suffer for a day without heat and power and whatnot, the problem was, for the most part, fixed not even 2 days later. So this had no real impact on people being able to watch the NFC Championship, this game right here, on January 7th. Even though that was the least of many people's concerns at that point. But remember how we said that a lot of trees and poles fell? Well, one of the poles that fell wasn't your typical pole. I don't even know if you can call it a pole. Because over in Abilene, 180 miles west of Dallas, the main transmitting tower for K-Texas, as in the CBS affiliate for Abilene, toppled over. At 7:42 p.m. on New Year's Day, 650 feet of the 1,000-foot tower completely snapped and crashed. If it crashed in an open field, maybe it would be okay, because there are backups for a reason. No major network has just one source. The problem was that the tower crashed onto an adjacent K-Texas building, which also crashed into the backup tower, which was 100 feet high. In other words, this was the worst case scenario. Everything was destroyed. The main tower was destroyed because of the ice storm, as was the backup tower. As station manager Robert Jackson said on this, quite bluntly, "We don't really know what happened." The great irony in this was that apparently, in a newscast just a few days before the ice storm happened, a reporter said that if there was a nuclear attack, seeing as we were at the height of the Cold War, that the station would be able to stay on the air, and that even though we might all die in the nuclear war, the station would still be alive, because they had the fail systems in place and lots of backups. Well, we didn't have to worry about that, but we did have to worry about an ice storm. And when it came to the ice storm test, K-Texas failed miserably. Fortunately, no one was hurt in this, which is kind of a miracle. After the lights flickered during the storm, John Andrews, a station technician, went up to the tower to see the problem, when the tower fell down. How Andrews didn't die, and how he escaped the 650-foot tower crashing down on him, I have no clue. However, as station manager Robert Jackson said, the transmitter light flickered, and Andrews went to check it out as usual. He had just started through the door when the tower fell. Andrews wasn't even supposed to be working that day. He traded shifts with another employee so that he could have Christmas off. So it was pure chance that he was there on the most horrific day in the history of the station. But as Andrews said, "I'm glad I was working. The other fellow might have run the other way, and things would be a whole lot different now." Everyone was okay, which is the most important part, with Andrews not even so much as bleeding or suffering any cuts or scratches to his body. But this much was clear. No one knew when K-Texas would be back on the air. Robert Jackson had no idea. Lloyd Minot, a station manager for a radio station that also rented space for the tower, had no idea as well. This was a 1,000-foot tower we were talking about, as well as the backup tower. It might take a while. And that was a problem, because this game you've been watching this whole time? Yeah, that was taking place on CBS, which held the rights to the NFC package of games. And the CBS affiliate in Abilene, which is Cowboys country, was none other than K-Texas. And Jackson was making no guarantees that the game was going to be shown. He had no clue when this problem was going to be fixed, seeing as it was unprecedented and everything was destroyed. As Jackson said about the pressing question on everyone's mind in the area, about whether the game would be shown, "We'll be back as soon as possible. But at this point in time, there is no way to know. Right now, I just don't know. We're going to attempt to get back on the air. and if we get back on the air, we'll do the ball game. We were just a few days away from the game, and the wreckage hadn't even been cleared. It was going to be a massive undertaking, and with a very real possibility that the game would not be able to be shown on K-Texas for obvious reasons, an unlikely lifeline appeared. Enter NBC and their Abilene affiliate there, KRBC. Because when it became clear that the game might not be shown, KRBC, whose tower was not impacted by the ice storm, entered the negotiation process. They were already showing the AFC Championship earlier in the day between the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Houston Oilers. And now, they were bidding for the rights to televise this game that you've been watching this whole time. As Brian Mundy, the program director for KRBC, said on this, "We hope very much that K-Texas will be back on the air. If they aren't on the air by late Friday afternoon on January 5th, we will make every effort to carry the Cowboy game for fans." Cable TV was also bidding for the rights to carry the game if things fell apart with K-Texas, but from everything I could find, that was just a pipe dream. It was NBC that was the main competitor. And this is where things get interesting, because at this point, we knew that the game was going to be televised in Abilene, and that Cowboy fans and football fans in the area would not get completely shafted. But we didn't know what network was going to do it. K-Texas was trying everything to make sure things would get restored, because each day they were off the air was a day where they were losing a ton of money. And the Cowboy game was obviously going to be a massive moneymaker for them from a ratings standpoint. One official said, "I really have no idea if we'll be back by the NFC Championship. All I can say is that we are making really good progress." And they already got the replacement tower from a nearby city in Texas, so that was taken care of. But at this point, both CBS and NBC were on standby for the game, with KRBC station manager Bill Terry saying that they were in a holding pattern. In a statement put out by K-Texas, they said, "In the event that we are unable to be on the air and carry the NFC football game live through CBS, we wish to relinquish our rights and ask that our local NBC affiliate, KRBC, be permitted to carry the game." In other words, if K-Texas was on the air, they were showing it. If they weren't, then KRBC would have it. You know how on injury reports, you have players listed as a game-time decision? Well, this was like that with the TV stations, because truly, no one knew what station the game was going to air on, especially because the weekend of the game, a second ice storm hit the area, complicating matters even more, and making construction and rebuilding efforts a bit tougher. And when I say that this was a game-time decision to show this Cowboys-Rams game, I truly mean it. The game kicked off at 4 o'clock in Texas, so 5 o'clock on the East Coast and 2 o'clock in Los Angeles where the game was being played. At 3:29 in Texas, there was still not a good picture. We were about half an hour away from kickoff, and we still had no idea whether the CBS or NBC affiliate was going to be able to televise the game. But right at the buzzer, at 3:30, just 30 minutes before kickoff, K-Texas station general manager Bob Jackson was able to get what he called a clear and adequate picture. The 1,000-foot tower that was now just 350 feet tall after 650 feet collapsed in the ice storm the previous week, they reworked that to a 300-foot tower that was functional. They added an antenna, and they were able to repair some of the other damage, including the building of a shelter around the transmitter, partly because of the ice storm that they knew was coming that week. Somehow, K-Texas pulled this off, and somehow, the CBS affiliate in Abilene was able to show the game. Or at least, sort of. Because if ever the phrase, "just because you can, doesn't mean you should," applies, it did for this game you've been watching. The picture quality for this game? Yeah, this is not what the people in Abilene saw. What they saw was a completely fuzzy mess, with reports saying that the picture was incredibly snowy. For those who don't know what that means, for the next 60 seconds, we're going to watch clips from this game as though you were watching in Abilene. Behold, this was your experience. This was your experience watching the NFC Championship. Just a complete mess of a broadcast. Looks fun, doesn't it? At least K-Texas had the courtesy to inform their viewers through messages throughout the broadcast that the picture was not the best, and that the broadcast was experiencing technical difficulties. Understatement of the century right there. But still, this was a case of K-Texas being super greedy. They had every opportunity to offload the game to KRBC. Heck, they had an agreement in place. Not even 30 minutes before, despite being down for the entire week, they magically are able to get back on the air. But the broadcast quality is so bad that it renders the game to be borderline unwatchable. The fact that there was no deadline for this to be sorted out is incredibly bizarre. I know Abilene isn't the biggest TV market out there. It's in the bottom 25% of TV market sizes in the country. But the local rating was going to be through the roof because of the number of Cowboy fans in the area. So you would think that the NFL would have realized the problem and stepped in and said, if you can't demonstrate a clear signal by this time on Saturday, you relinquish the rights to the game. You would think there would be something in the contract like that. You would think there'd be some negotiation process with the NFL. But the fact that they weren't even on the air until 30 minutes beforehand? I mean, what did they think was going to happen? No one wants to watch a football game like this. It actually would have been better if K-Texas stayed off the air so that Cowboy fans could have watched with a clear signal. Instead, they got this mess that they just threw on because they clearly just wanted to show the game and not let another station televise it and get all the money from it, even though they were not even the slightest bit capable of doing it. They rushed the process, and it backfired tremendously. I should note when it came to the NFC Championship and the game between these two teams behind me right here, that this was the last time that K-Texas ever televised the NFC Championship. Yes, they were a CBS affiliate, but later in 1979, they switched over to ABC and became an ABC affiliate, meaning that K-Texas never televised another NFC Championship again. This was the way they went out from that perspective. And man, what a way to go out. 30 minutes before the game, you just get a signal. You don't know whether or not you're going to televise the game in the first place, and you end up televising a mess that is deceiving, and that tricks your viewers into thinking they're actually getting a quality broadcast, when in reality, they're just getting fuzzy images throughout. What a way to go out. What a last impression you guys made. The 1978 NFC Championship, all across the board, was a mess. A complete mess. During the game, you had CBS lie to its viewers about the programming after the game, which ticked a bunch of people off. You can learn more about that by clicking the card in the upper right corner. The game itself featured 10 turnovers, and again, even though it was closer than the final score might indicate, it was still a super sloppy affair that was not a good game to watch. Combine that with a 34-5 slaughter in the AFC Championship between Pittsburgh and Houston, and this was a conference championship weekend to forget. And the broadcast in Abilene? Well, that was a mess for all the reasons we've said before. There had to be some poor Cowboy fan based in Abilene that witnessed this mess, and then traveled up to Idaho for the Super Bowl and couldn't watch the game because that station lost power right before the game kicked off, which you can learn more about by clicking the card in the upper right corner. If you were that person, if you were one of them, my condolences. If you're out there, I feel for you. Because on this day in 1979, when it came to the all-important NFC Championship, the CBS affiliate in Abilene really should have leaned on NBC. Get your official Jaguar Gator 9 merchandise by going to jj9shop.com, and be sure to like and subscribe, as it really helps the channel out a lot. Join me every Wednesday night where we'll play NFL Trivia for cash prizes at 9 p.m. Eastern over on Twitch. To learn more about the history of college football, subscribe to Jaguar Gator 8. To learn more about the history of Major League Baseball, subscribe to Jaguar Gator 7. Also, special thanks to all of our Patreon supporters for helping out the channel. Your support is greatly appreciated. See how you can become a patron and request future video topics in the description below.